My 10th birthday was the first time I visited my dad's office at Juhu Helibase and Flight School. He used to be in charge of the aviation fuel supply at the base for an oil company. It was a birthday treat that turned out to be a few more heavily negotiated visits for the next few years. I would promise to be a perfect angel just to get a peek at the aircraft. It was love at first sight for me. Those Bell copters and the Pipers and the Cessna always thrilled my heart to see these small planes take off from these handkerchief-sized flying strips. And the helicopters, those mean machines, state of the art, just taking vertically off and floating away like a feather. I was always dreaming of being with a pilot, controlling such power, taking off to imaginary places far, far away. In addition to the freedom, I also imagined what things I was familiar with would look like my house from the sky, without the usual limits and restrictions. Anything was possible in the air. It was an incredible rush that surpassed nearly every other earthly sensation I had till then. I used to stalk the pilots and shadow the technicians. And after a little while, they got used to having me underfoot and asking lots of questions about the planes. I would pray that someday some pilot would offer me a flight with them, but they never did, as it was a violation of safety rules. I made up for that by reading voraciously about different types of light aircraft, tried to spot the different models in the flying school. The chief flight instructor was a hulking, sandy blonde Norwegian with deep blue eyes and sunburned skin. To me, he was a Norse god come to life. Squinting down from his 6'3" frame at me, standing all of 3'6". I was so totally smitten with him. Like an unwanted but very loyal minion, I followed him exclusively when he was there. It was like no other pilot existed and no other plane deserved to be in the sky other than his. Sometimes he would stop and ask, "And how's it all today?" And every time he did that, I would ask him if there was any way I could get a teensy flight in one of his Pipers. He would laugh and give me a candy from his pocket. And laugh again at my disappointed face as I stared at my palm. I cajoled my dad to take me to work with him almost every other day that summer vacation and every other Saturday when school was on. From my birthday in May till September, I had the best possible grades in school, and I could have been nominated for sainthood. I was that good. Seeing my disappointed face for so many months at being refused to even touch the controls of the Piper I coveted, maybe he was just fed up with me following him around with these puppy dog eyes. Whatever triggered his sympathy, he told my dad that if he swung a special permit for me to be on an oil rig, he would fly me there at his risk. And we would go in a helicopter. I went from having a crush to being in love in that instant. A soaring, chest-expanding love for this airplane flying Thor who could make my dream come true. Needless to say, my dad had to get the permit. I resorted to all the little girl tricks I could garner. The relentless please, 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 the promise to top my class, the I will never ask you for anything else again, and if you love me, you would do this, and finally the teary, I love you so much, Papa, can you not do this for me? It was finally set for 2nd of October. Yes, I remember the date exactly. How could I forget the day my dream was manifest? We reached the helibase bright and early. Me not allowing my dad to sleep further than 5:30 a.m. when the flight was supposed to be at 9 a.m. I hung around the technical staff as usual, pestering them with questions. As I sipped tea and went about starting their day, I asked about the flight plans, the check they would do on the selected helicopter, How would it land on the rig, on that monstrous floating platform? How would it remain stable? Would we have to tie it down with chains? Just before I reached my limit with them and have somebody threaten to throw me out of the helicopter on flight, my blonde god arrived. He was dressed in a yellow flight suit, a red helmet painted with a white star, his big safe hands carrying a safety jacket for me. We were indeed going to fly! Hooray! I ran to get my dad pronto, my sprint being followed by the godly laugh that promised more than candy today. We were made to wait until all the checks were completed. I was so restless, my dad made me go to the loo. Finally, it was all ready. My blonde god beckoned me into what would be our chariot to the skies. I stepped towards the copter and realized I could not step on it by myself. It was too short. I looked around, confused and helpless, trying to spot something tall enough that would help me step into it. No one seemed to notice my distress, except, of course, for my Thor. With an easy laugh, he lifted me into the helicopter seat next to him. It was a perfect moment, made even more perfect by, and how's the doll today? The engines hummed, then they roared. There was a quick chatter of pre-flight checks. We shook slightly, and like the moment a tired mind finally falls asleep, the ground retreated beneath us. The flight was simply amazing. It was a noisy ride for sure, but the ever-tilting horizon, the 270-degree view, the sea rising up to meet us when we banked, just took my breath away. If he was Thor, I was the goddess Frigg, queen of heaven. Or Tyr, the Norse god of the skies. As the steel girders of the oil rig rose like a mirage beneath us, we landed on the massive steel platform floating in the middle of the sea. The rush was just beyond words. It's probably the first kid to be there on the rig, so it was beyond words. We stepped down, ducking between the rotors of the helicopter. I didn't need to, but I still did. We walked down a steel staircase, each of my hands held tightly by my two heroes, one by my dad, the other by the instructor. It was a windy day, and we could see the water churning between the drill underneath our feet to the wide gaps of the steel staircase. It was a scary sight, but I felt protected by the two strong men guarding me. We landed next to a hatch 2 stories down and entered into the blessed cool of the rig. We walked down this long corridor with doors on both sides, almost like a parade walk, which led into the crew's living quarters. At the end of the corridor, we reached a huge hall with long tables laden with food on one side and seating arrangements for 4 to 6 on the other side. And what food! It was a kid's mecca of treats. 5 different types of pastries, 3 different types of jellies, tiny sandwiches of ham and cheese, big bowls of nuts, all this and more. Turns out the cooks at the rig had heard of our visit and had been nice enough to lay out all the goodies they had for the next week in just that one meal. Each of the crew members who was dining there with us came by our table to say thank you for the treat. After the meal, my host took us to the tour of the rig. I remember being amazed at the ease with which the crew of the rig scrambled over beams, over the open ocean, and even walked the huge rotary blades that actively drilled into the bottom. Throughout the tour, I was always held safe by one or other of my protectors. I remember walking through many steel walkways, crisscrossing web of reliability, separating us from the raw power of nature. We tried to shout over the incessantly drilling mechanics, with the noisy water churned and dredged between the two drills. The wind made eerie, threatening sounds like you were in its territory as it whistled through the steel rods and girders. It was like watching an epic battle of this floating steel monster and each element of nature. As the sun started to set on my day of royalty, the piercing blue above us giving way to the warm and tender purple and pinks, I soaked it all in. The faces, the textures. Perhaps most of all, the pride in my 10-year-old little girl's heart that someone had taken the energy and effort to make this day happen for me. Thoreau said, most men live lives of quiet desperation and go to the grave with a song still unheard. Over the crashing water and the deafening drilling, I was able to hear the echo of my song that day. We flew back late in the afternoon, catching a spectacular sunset from the skies. It was the first time I realized that the sun does not actually set into the sea, but disappears over the horizon. The flight back somehow seemed shorter and sadder to me. But all was right with my world as I heard the whisper, and how's it all today, as I was lifted down from the helicopter. The doll is ecstatic and content. I wanted to say, only I didn't know the words then. All I did was laugh and ask for the candy. I tailed my blonde god for another few months. He promised me that when I was 18, I could join the flight school under his tutelage. That kept my enthusiasm for flying going solid for another 3 years. And I diligently kept a record of the momentous events like the Voyager's flight, not the Space Voyager, which was piloted by Dick Ruta and Jana Yeager, which went around the world without stopping or refueling. By this you know my age, so I'm not going to say anymore. Unfortunately, my dream of joining the ranks of pilots was not to be. I soon developed myopia, and it only got worse as I grew up. By the time I was 18, it was bad enough to make flight lessons impossible. But I didn't give up my hopes. In fact, I still nurture it in my daydreams and my night dreams. My plan is, in the not-so-distant future, to get my eyesight corrected, find a suit that fits, and go about writing a tiny but brand new chapter in Norse mythology. Thank you.